Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast, where it is our take on life, liberty, and the pursuit of gravy. And you, the listener, are invited to come up on the front porch, grab a beverage, and stay a while. We've got a great show lined up for you as always. But before we begin, let me introduce you to our starting lineup. At the bottom of the screen, thank you, Zoom, is going to be Magic Man running our Facebook Live and our YouTube Live and running the chat. What's up, Magic Man?
Hey, what's up, everybody? How's everyone doing tonight?
Fantastic. You look like we fumbled out of the gate. Everything okay?
Yeah, they just didn't hear who we're sponsored by. So if you want to go
Yeah.
through that again, or if we can not, doesn't matter.
Washman Cigars, Operation Decisive Victory, and Webmerized and Free Lunch Coffee. Use promo code Southern Fried at freelunchcoffee.com. Use promo code Southern Fried at freelunchcoffee.com to get 10% off your order. There you go. How about that? We get it?
We got it.
All right. Producer Brian, how you be doing?
I'll be doing better than Magic Man, apparently. So.
Ooh. I mean, one of these days, we're going to be able to fly out of the gate and do an awesome show. One of these days.
Yeah. Don't drink in podcast, guys.
And I haven't even started yet.
Oh, Lord. You know that laugh. That's going to get us in trouble. Hey, this may be your first time tuning in, and we really appreciate it. If you have stumbled across Southern Fried Philosophy, we appreciate it. First time listening, you say, "What's the show about?" Listen, it's our take on our opinions, our perspectives, mainly from a Southern culture. We get to pull back the curtain and kind of show the not so Facebook side of our lives sometimes. And then sometimes it's just funny. And then we'll share some wacky news and just have a guest and hear their stories. I'm really excited about our guest tonight, Peggy No Stevens. Man, this is some bourbon royalty coming on the show. I'm excited about that. Producer Brian, where can people find us on these socials and the interwebs?
Yes, we are all over the interwebs. Facebook at Southern Fried Philosophy, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and I believe TikTok. At
TikTok, you don't stop.
So if I don't know what's going to show up there yet, but you can sign in and maybe you'll get a sneak preview at Biggins Next DRE. You can always email us at sfpradio@gmail.com. Make sure you check us out on Patreon. We'd love your support. Patreon.com/sfpradio. Podcast is on iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Music, Google Play. Which is it? Google Music. I'm not Google guy. So
Google Play.
Yeah. We're everywhere, all over the world. You already know that because you're listening to me talk. So.
The one thing about our show is we do not have millions and millions of dollars. We have like $1.50 to really spend on advertising. So we have to rely on our good looks, which that's not doing very good, or you, the listener, and you guys are the most effective. So please, 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 we just ask you, if you listen to the show, just go, subscribe, like, tell your friends about it, write a review. That would really help us move up on the algorithm charts. We are really trying to focus on getting more listeners so that we have more guests, better guests. Not that our guests are bad, but the more people you have, right, the bigger names you can get. We don't get Joe Rogan quality guests. Quality is the bad word, but like
level.
That's
we don't get the fancy celebrities yet. And we could get some advertisers and possibly pass some discounts on along to our listeners for things we might be interested in. So
yeah. Oh, that's a great way to talk about it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
You're head of PR.
Yeah.
So we would really appreciate it. Also, YouTube. This is a huge thing. If you're listening on the podcast, please go to YouTube and click subscribe. We need 100 subscribers. Watch the videos. Just play them at work. They're work friendly, so you don't have to do any, you said a dirty word. So producer Brian does the little stop whistle to edit those words out if needed.
Keep it clean as possible.
So you can play it at work, you can play it wherever, play it for the kids, what have you. But we would really appreciate that. We need to get those numbers up at least to 100. I would really like 1,000 because I've been watching some of these YouTube live things and they're great. If we can really knock it out of the park there, we might be able to quit our jobs and do this full time. I mean, how would you like Southern Fried every day? That would be crazy. So anyway, we need you guys to push push. You are our advertising budget. So please make sure you like, subscribe, tell your friends, all that stuff. I'll give you a hat, something, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. We would really appreciate that. If you are staying at home and you want to do your own podcast and be part of the Southern Fried Network, we would also love that. Shoot an email to producer Brian at headlines@SFP Radio. That would be awesome. Next week, we have Karen Tibbles. She has a book, Persuade, Don't Preach, Restoring Civility Across the Political Divide. Now, that is a topic. That is a long title, but oh, what a topic.
It's gonna be interesting. I'm
Reach
looking
over
forward
here
to it.
and boom,
Booyah.
right there. So she's on the show next week.
Wow.
An actual author. Look, she wrote a real book. Producer Brian,
That's
I
paper-
know
Oh,
there's no pictures.
there's no pictures. Oh,
So I apologize
it's
for
a
that.
hard sell, man.
It's a tough one.
There's
So
a coloring page in there.
you can make it all coloring pages. That's the fun thing
I can
about
draw my own pictures. Okay.
No pop-ups.
it. No pop-ups. Man, by the way, my kid loves pop-ups. Also, we still need listeners. Guess where? North Dakota, Alaska, and Vermont. Now, listen, I had a line on somebody listening in Vermont this week, and it did not happen. So I'm a little disappointed in that. I will say at the beginning of the week, I was very frustrated at Alaska. So what I did is I went on the good old Craigslist and I made a missed connection ad and just tried to promote the show, saying, we've been around 6 years. We haven't ever met, but I feel like we would get along. Your beautiful tracts of land and your scenery. Please just listen to the show. We just need one person. That was on there for literally about 4 minutes, and then it got flagged. So one thing I know about Alaska, they don't listen to our show, and they're very serious about their missed connections on Craigslist. They don't play. So I'm going to try New Hampshire this week and see what happens. But we need listeners from that.
Just say you need like some maple syrup or something. Like,
yeah, we'll need to.
Looking for the good stuff. Who can hook me up?
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Bright idea. We'll TikTok something about maple syrup.
Right.
There we go.
Like bashing it or something, right? Or
there you go,
not.
New Hampshire.
I don't know.
All right. So, I kind of went out for the order. Let me ask you guys again, how you been doing? Producer Brian, I noticed you said that you had something you want to talk about on how you been doing.
Yeah. So, as most folks who listen know, I work from home as most of us do now. I'm self-employed, but my kids are both here all the time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got some good rhythms going, but I think both of my children are going to end up in like law school, like criminal defense lawyers or labor lawyers, perhaps.
That would be
awesome. They're really learning how to work the systems that we've got set aside here, right? So I have a 4.5-year-old boy.
Okay.
And so I'm really strict. Our family's really strict about screens and what they're allowed to watch, when they're allowed to watch, all that kind of stuff. But they both have an iPad and they give time. They're allowed to play on that. So we have what we call educational screen time and then regular screen time.
Okay. Fun screen time.
So there's fun. You can watch a movie, whatever you want to do, and that's all time controlled. I'm a Nazi about that stuff.
Okay.
But my son today, I'm busy doing something and he, it's like, after whatever time it was time for him to do the educational quote. So he goes, he told me what he was going to do. I was like, okay, I'm working, whatever. And then like 30 seconds later, he has the iPad and he shows me what he's planning on doing during his educational screen time. And I go, whoa. That's Angry Birds Racing. He goes, but Dad, I'm going to learn to drive.
Oh, okay.
Because he's learning something. Right?
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Nice try, kid.
Yeah.
Just, no.
Not working.
Something else. I was like, that almost happened. Like I was like just not paying attention because, sometimes as parents, just like, okay, whatever you say, go do what you want to do. But he totally is milking the learning part of screen time.
Okay. Well, there you go. Speaking of driving, I've been doing Big Brothers Big Sisters for about 4 or 5 years now, and so he is now 16
Hmm.
and driving. And mom said, I need you to teach him how to drive because I don't trust myself. He looked at me and said, please, Lord, teach me how to drive because I don't trust my mom. So so at that point I'm like, all right, check, gotcha. So we have a little '01 Honda Civic, and man, I've tried to kill that thing. I've
It's a
tried
sweet
to,
ride.
bury it. I tried to do all kinds of things, and it will not go away. So, but he's buying. Let me use buying the car from us, and he's also learning how to drive with it. And it's an old car. It doesn't run the greatest. I call it the grandma car. You got to treat it like a grandma. But man, we went for a drive, and it was the first time at night. Y'all, I thought I puckered up for that DRE. My bum hurt because I was so scared. It's like I don't know, and I didn't know the roads, and it was like, twisting all over the place. I was so scared. I thought we were gonna die. It was not a fun time. So,
Wow.
but he's getting better. I mean, he's a good driver. I trust him. We haven't done the interstate yet. God help me when that happens.
I remember
So,
when I was doing driver's ed, I
mhm.
was back in this is the mid 90s. Did two at a time. So like me and a girl I went to high school with were both in the
Mhm.
car. She was driving, and we go to pull in the interstate. And this is the only time in my life I've ever seen this happen. But someone was backing up the on ramp towards us.
I've seen that
Like
happen.
I was like,
Okay.
what? Yeah, terrifying.
I have seen people. I've seen going on the on ramp or off ramp. What on ramp? It was you get up to the. Sorry, it was the off ramp. You hit the stoplight, and when the stoplight happened, they stopped there, but their tire kept going across the road. The whole car scooped, and like the tire was kept rolling across. You're like,
Oh,
oh,
man.
that's not good. So anyway, Ryan, you got anything else you want to add, talk about?
Congratulations to Cletus McFarland, one of my YouTube favorites that I watch. They're doing their first. To make a long story short, they bought an abandoned racetrack in Bradenton, Florida. It's known
Mm-hmm.
as the DeSoto Speedway, and they bought it in January of last year, right before COVID hit, and they're doing their very first soft opening launch event tonight.
Very cool.
Tonight being Thursday, for those that'll be listening to this on the over the podcast. And so, anyways, they're doing their first event, and so congratulations to them. I wish I could be there, but that's a little bit of a drive from Charlotte. So
Yeah,
Sure.
it's a scary time to invest in a public entertainment. Right?
exactly, because they were intending on doing stuff last year, and of course,
Yeah.
so they made up with it. They did a couple of races, and then they live streamed it. And they sold tickets to the live stream, so they were able to do a few
Okay.
things last year. But
That's
this
cool.
year they're actually able to do public events. They're doing it social distancing and limiting the amount of people that can be there, etc. But they're actually able to do some stuff now. So yeah,
Oh, I just had the live stream. I just had an idea for our TikTok channel.
Okay.
Biggin driving with his little brother.
Mhm.
Just your reactions while he's driving the whole time. That's all we need.
Okay.
Like everyone would watch that, right?
We can make that happen. We can make it happen. Hey, one thing I forgot to mention about our listeners. One of the things I love about the show is we get listeners from literally across all over the world. And I got this Facebook message, and I just wanted to share just how cool this is. There is a restaurant owner, and my like Dutch, I don't know, the Netherlands, that's close to Germany, I think, right? Is really good on this. It's Alphonse Schultz.
It's closer
Isn't that
than
a
here.
great name?
Wow.
Alphonse Schultz. So
You
he
can't say
messaged
that with a southern accent, can you?
Alphonse Schultz.
There it is.
There it
Schutz.
is. Schultz. He messaged me and said, hey, y'all, Alphonse Schultz here, listening to you from the Netherlands, lived in Tombstone for a while making Old West signs and did some cowboying in Idaho. What? He said, but he fell in love with the South. Now I am an American restaurant owner back in Europe. If you ever have a few minutes, check out our site, www.theranchhouse.de. We have a lot of soldiers from the U.S. that are stationed here visiting us, and they feel really at home for a few hours. Thanks for a great podcast. And man, how cool is that? We're getting listeners from the Netherlands, and they're just messaging us, and we're kind of building a relationship with him. By the way, I did check out his website, and bro, your ribs look legit. I'm just saying. He's got some good looking food on that one. So check it out. You know, I guess the numbers help him out at theranchhouse.de. But he said that he made most of the metal signs in Tombstone, which that sounds cool. And then some cowboying in Idaho. So anyway,
he's living his best life.
I mean, he is, man. So way to go, Alphonse Schutz. Alphonse Schutz. So one of the things that I have been dialed into like none other is this Wall Street bets thing again. And I know we talked about it last week, guys. I've now bought books on how to invest in like Wall Street strategy and whatnot. And this week, that's all that I've really done is I'll come home or I come downstairs. There's some live streams that happen that talk about what to invest in for the day. And I have been so dialed into this thing. It's crazy. I have lost not a ton of money on GameStop or AMC. I think this whole Wall Street bets is kind of where all of those capital people went that wanted a raw against the man. I think they just went to Wall Street bets because they're still holding out. They're like, hold the line, stand strong. And I'm still holding out, man. I think that and I am not a financial advisor. This is just for entertainment purposes only. Evidently, you've got to say that. But I think there's still
disclaimer at. That's what
I think there's a lot of room still for GameStop and AMC. So I've been stuck watching these YouTube videos, and I am now more obsessed than anything. I have, as the term that they use, doubled down on my love of Wall Street. So there was a song that came out, and it's Nitty Gritty has written the song, has performed the song, and it has been stuck in my head for a solid 6 days now. And we're going to play it for you. We do have permission to play it. So producer Brian, to you, sir.
There you go.
Yo, shout out Wall Street Bets, JJ, Brian, Elon Musk, my mom, what up? I got diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands. Ooh. Yeah. GME, AMC, take that risk all on me. Robin Hood, you a dork, saving shorts while we squeeze. I don't got paper hands, sticking it to the man. I don't got paper hands, hold the line and stand. Diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands. Ooh, yeah. Wall Street bets, trimming the hedge, playing the game, but now we ahead. They getting mad, going in debt. We getting rich, Wall Street is dead. I don't got paper hands, sticking it to the man. I don't got paper hands, hold the line and stand. Diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. I got diamond hands, diamond hands. Ooh.
All right. So that song has been stuck in my head for the past 6 days. I cannot get it out, even if I wanted to. I've tried and tried and tried.
You know, that's impressive, I want to say, because that was what, a week ago this story started coming out, right?
Yeah.
This is a music video. He's Bruce's song done a music video, like with animations and everything. Like it's pretty. I mean, it's funny, but For those of you who didn't see the video, we'll put that video in our show notes on YouTube. But he's dancing in front of a GameStop with a bottle of champagne, in like an AMC theater, and there's like these little diamond like animations coming down the screen and stuff. It's pretty well done for a week, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you know, those that don't know what diamond hands are, is just like the phrase that they use of we're not going to sell, we're not going to let go. And then paper hands are people that have sold out and, you know, took in the cash and gone. But man, I'm telling you, like just hearing some of the stories, this guy made a good chunk of money on GameStop, bought 6 Nintendo Switches, and then gave them to a children's hospital. You know, so some of these people are doing some really cool stuff with their profits. What they call the tendies, by the way, they're tenders. There's a whole lingo out there. It's crazy.
Yeah, I need a dictionary for that.
Yeah, no, there is. And then
is there a urban Wall Street dictionary or something like that?
We should make one.
There you go.
And we'll put it under our dictionary on the southernfried.com. The other thing too that I thought was cool, you mentioned JJ at the beginning of it. He said, shout out to JJ. And it's a reference to JJ Buckner. And this dude has gone from, I mean, he's pretty well known, but he's doing YouTube live videos that are now getting like 14, 15,000 viewers at a time. At one point, I think it was like 22,000. And he's a guy that I really, really respect about how he does his investments, and it's more like long-term stuff. But I have a ton of respect for JJ. He quit his job. He's got an amazing story, and I've reached out to him. He's going to try to come on the show later this year. So hopefully we'll get JJ Buckner on, and again, we'll go back to Nitty Gritty with his song when he comes back on. That'll be his walk-up song. So anyway, I'm really excited about having JJ on. I think that'd be really cool. So anyway, I have been stuck in Wall Street land this week. You know who hasn't been stuck in Wall Street land? Screech. Screech from Saved by the Bell, R.I.P. Screech. 3 months. He found out 3 months ago that he had lung cancer and then passed away. Man.
Yeah, that's a pretty.
Did you guys watch Saved by the Bell?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love Screech. He was one of my favorites.
He was on TBS all day, every day. I feel like.
Sure. Now, all right, let's be real. Let's be honest. Who did you have the crush on? Let's go around the table.
No.
Who did you have the crush on? I know. Don't. It's just us. Nobody's listening.
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy, right? It's like I'm trying to remember the name. Was it?
There was
Kelly?
Kelly Kapowski.
Kelly was the
Jesse Spano.
Tiffany Amber Thyssen, right?
Yeah.
That's the one, right?
There was Jessie Spano. She was the tall one, the tall nerdy one, and then Lisa Turtle, and she was the fashionista. So you're saying Kelly?
Yeah.
Brian, what say you?
Oh, it was a tie between probably Kelly and Lisa. They were both.
Yes. Thank you. There was a tie for me.
But I have to say my all-time was Winnie Cooper.
Ooh. she's not on the board, but okay.
I know, but I had to throw that in there.
So, yeah. So R.I.P. Screech. Super Bowl. Producer Brian, you want to talk about that?
The Super Bowl, that's still happening this year?
Evidently. Evidently it's happening.
You know, this is one of those years, you know, I love football. I'm a big football fan, big 49er fan. And this is one of those years, like, this is like the most boring matchup to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Chiefs were good all year. I think everyone knew they were going to be in the whole time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Tom Brady goes to a new team and turns them around, apparently. All my thoughts are about, like, you know, everyone questioned whether he was the GOAT or he had a bunch of wins in New England. Was it Belichick? Was it Brady? This season kind of
solidified that, right?
Towards the Tom Brady thing. Yeah, he did.
Oh,
yeah, he basically took over the whole team. He did what Peyton Manning did in Denver several years ago. He walked in and just said, "Okay, this is my team.
Yeah.
It's not the coach's team. It's not the general manager's team. Let's go get this wide receiver. Let's bring in this Rob Gronkowski out of retirement or whatever." Like, you know, and it was a slow start, but
but they pulled it out.
here they are. It's what, how many, 7 or 8 times he's been there.
Yeah, I have
Right.
no idea. I kind of want him to lose just because he's too pretty.
Right. There's that. There's,
Way too good
my
looking.
wife's a Steeler fan and they hate
Sure,
Tom
of
Brady. And
course.
I've got past like at this point, it's like, how are you still doing this? I
Just
don't
retire
believe it
already.
anymore.
You're so
I
old.
think Kansas City's best chance is to bring Eli Manning out of retirement and let him play because he's the only one to repeat.
You should just have the old man bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. We are actually, our guest is online and we want to give her enough time. So we are going to go ahead and bring her on and we'll kind of get this thing rolling. So hang on while we bring her in.
Hello.
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 Can you hear us okay?
I can. How about you?
Yes,
you hear
ma'am.
me?
Yes, ma'am. Perfect.
How is the angle of the camera?
Perfect.
It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Down a little bit?
Down just a tish. I love the ceiling though. Those are cool.
Okay.
There's some cool beams. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the beams. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Well, Miss No Stevens, thank you for joining. We'll go ahead and do you have any questions for us before we get started?
Just does it actually start at what time? 8?
We've been going since 7:30, but we'll record your part now.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is once it's completed, producer Brian will edit it and then we'll put it on the podcast.
Okay. So we're on for how long then?
As long as you want to be.
Oh, okay.
It is all determined
Until
by
my
you.
battery runs out.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yes. We'll try to make this as quick and painless as possible. And again, thank you so
Okay.
much for coming. So producer Brian, do you want to go ahead and get going?
And now, our feature presentation.
All right. So we have with us, unfortunately not in studio, but on the Zoom hotline, we have Miss Peggy No Stevens, the first female master bourbon taster, the author of Which Fork Do I Use with My Bourbon? And by goodness, in all accounts, this is bourbon royalty. Thank you,
That's
Miss
very
Stevens,
kind.
for coming in.
Thanks for having me. Very
Yes,
kind.
ma'am.
Tell my husband that.
Absolutely.
Bourbon royalty.
You
I'd like him to know
bring,
that.
You can bring him in. I'll tell him to his face.
Okay, good.
Oh, well, Miss No Stevens, can I call you Peggy for the interview?
Absolutely.
We're family, right? So it's okay.
That's right. Bourbon family.
Well, Peggy, I have my biggest question to you tonight is this. What has happened to our University of Kentucky Wildcat basketball team?
Oh boy, you did read about me. You know, I bleed blue for UK, and it's just been a tough year. Can we just blanket it and just say it's been a tough year for all athletes?
Yes, ma'am.
And maybe this, for 2020 was tough, and they sure has had some challenges this year. But I have faith in the Cats; they'll come back.
Absolutely. I went to school at Campbellsville University.
Oh, you did? Okay.
When I came out of when I was born, the first thing that was put on me was a UK onesie. My dad and mom was from Louisville, and I have bled blue my entire life. And this year is painful. It hurts so much.
It does. Oddly enough, my dad was an avid, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and my dad was an avid U of L fan. And he was heartbroken when I told him that I wanted to go away to college. That was one big deal, to go away to college, just to Lexington. And he was heartbroken that I went to the Wildcats. And I never regretted it, ever. I was best time of my life.
We'll make trips back up. My grandma still lives in Campbellsville, aunt and uncle in Louisville, and we'll still go up and we'll, pass by Rupp Arena. And I just, sometimes I have to just stop and put my hand on it and thank the good Lord I'm a Cats fan.
That's
this
right.
Year,
That's
this
right.
year's tough.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am. Well, tell us a little bit about your story. Again, we've talked about the first female master bourbon taster. What happened after you graduated from the University of Kentucky?
Well, the biggest thing that happened when I graduated that takes me back a bit is I could not find a job.
Hmm.
I think that, I graduated with a great GPA and, president of my sorority and just had, really beefed up my resume. And I could not find a job to save my life. And so, ironically, I had an internship in school at Hyatt Hotel in Lexington.
Okay.
And then I ended up, just kind of going in and asking for an interview with the Hyatt Regency in Louisville because I had moved back home. And I was hired as a catering and convention services manager. And I have never in my life worked so hard.
Oh,
I probably averaged 60 to 70 hours a week. And, all hours of the day, I could be at the hotel at midnight doing an event. I could be there at 4 a.m. setting up for a breakfast meeting.
mhm.
It was boot camp. But I have to tell you, it was boot camp for hospitality. And now looking back, it really laid my foundation on
Mm.
entertaining and hospitality. And it taught me all about wine and spirits. And, I really learned food and beverage from kind of the ground up. And then, and then I ended up working at the Hyatt in Chicago.
Mhm.
And so my big dream at that point was to be a general manager of a hotel. I thought that would be really cool, maybe like Maui. Um, you know,
Oh, wow.
and then before I could really kind of take off with the hotel business, because I did move into sales and PR and all of that, Brown Foreman, which makes, of course, Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, which I think we might be tasting tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, they actually headhunted me and they were starting up kind of a meeting planning, event planning department, and had asked me to be in charge of it. So, of course, working for a big company was very attractive to me. Hopefully, less hours than I was doing at the hotel, and I've whet my appetite, to whiskey, and that's where I really started.
So that's when your love of bourbon started. Is that fair?
Well, now that I will not say. My love of bourbon probably started, and I hate to say that, growing up in
Sure.
Kentucky. I mean, it's
Yeah.
almost through
Mm.
osmosis that you have bourbon in your eggnog at
They
Christmas,
put it in your
and
baby bottle, right? Is that what I
yeah,
heard? Right?
exact. Rub it on your gums,
Yeah.
teething. But gosh, I remember my mother drinking highballs, growing up, and I know that smell. And I'd drive downtown with my mother to the dentist office, and you could smell the mash in
Hmm.
the air from the different, distilleries. So I really, really kind of grew up with it. And through college, we were talking about UK. I look at the big tumbler cups that we take to the football games in the good old days when you could walk in with your whiskey. Um, and yeah, so I've always had a love for bourbon, but I might not have had the appreciation for it.
Mm.
And that I learned, while I was working in a company.
And how was it to one go back to Kentucky after being in Chicago and then being part of Brown Foreman and being near those distilleries that you grew up around, right?
Yeah, well, I tell you, I think going to Chicago was probably the best thing that this Kentucky girl ever did, because it made me grow up. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is, in Louisville, for example, I could drive anywhere 20 minutes and get to where I'm going. And, Chicago was a daunting big city for me.
Mhm.
And the people were not just like me. They were from all over and different cultures, different backdrops and languages. And so I learned so much about people and the clients that we had and the conventions that came in. And it just kind of elevated my senses for professionalism. So it grew me. I'll say it really grew me. Where boot camp was in the hotel business and I learned all the nuts and bolts of hospitality, Chicago kind of made me grow up.
Mm.
And so when I came back to Kentucky, I felt really prepared. I felt really prepared to take on, a corporate job.
Mm. That's really cool. It's almost like building blocks, it feels like.
It was. I mean, for me, it was. I mean, I'll never forget, honestly, one of the women in Chicago at the hotel that took me under her wing. I mean, I did not dress well. I did not carry myself very well. And she took me under her wing and kind of groomed me and took me shopping and, kind of had me dressed professional and things that I really didn't pay attention to because I was so young. I was in my 20s and, fresh out of college, you're still wearing your college clothes. And so it was a good learning experience. And to this day, I have very, very cherished memories. And Chicago is one of my favorite places to visit to this day
Mm.
because of that.
I'm 43 and I'm wearing a hoodie tonight, so I understand that. Um, so you've lived several places. You lived Chicago, I think even Atlanta, correct?
Yes, yes.
And then Louisville, Lexington. What's been your favorite?
Well, I have to say Kentucky,
Mhm.
honestly, because my husband and I, we did live in Atlanta for a short period of time. We lived in Chicago for a short period of time. And, of course, I lived in Lexington, but, that's Kentucky. But always, I mean, always with a heart for my state, for Kentucky. In fact, our big wrestling match that my husband and I talked about during the shutdown, because we were like, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about what do we want to do when we retire one day? Where do we want to live? Do we want to, sell our house and buy a house someplace else in Florida or wherever? And do you know what we came up with was that we really want to be here in
Mm.
Kentucky. I mean, it is our home, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and I really don't have any desire to live anywhere else in the world.
That's my dream. My wife's from Georgia. Her
Oh,
family's
is
in
she?
Georgia.
Okay.
She is.
We were in Marietta. We were in
Okay.
Marietta.
Yep. She's lived in Cordele, which is like an hour and a half north of Florida.
Okay.
So way down south.
Yeah.
And so we can't go any further north than Charlotte. That's where we're at now. But
Okay.
my dream is to get back to Kentucky. That's where I want to retire. I want to like work at some of the distillery and just
There you
live there for the
go.
rest of my life.
That's right.
We had, and I don't know if you're familiar with Kentucky Sports Radio.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
We had Ryan Lemond on, and we were talking about Kentucky as well. And I was like, and I asked Ryan, and I'll ask you as well, like, what is it about Kentucky that just makes you feel like this is home? I've lived in Florida, St. Louis, Houston, Kentucky, but there's never been a place where it just feels like home. What is it do you think about Kentucky that does that?
I think it's, definitely considered Southern, right? I think that Southern hospitality rings true. It's a very friendly state, a
Mhm.
very welcoming state. In fact, so much so that, I work with so many distilleries outside of Kentucky, across the US. And I help build their distilleries or visitor center experiences, or I write their tasting program or their scripts for their tour guides, or whatever the case might be. And when they're just deciding what to do, if it's in Pennsylvania or New York or whatever, they come to Kentucky to train.
Mhm.
And they come and meet with our distillers, and they meet with the Kentucky Distillers Association. And the feedback, hands down, that I always get is they can't believe how gracious everybody is to help them. I mean, here they are
Mhm.
going to start a distillery in an opposite state, which we should look at it as a competitor, but we don't.
Yeah.
And kind of that rising tide raises all ships. And so I think it's just a very friendly, welcoming state, and it's a beautiful state.
Mhm.
It's the bluegrass, if you will, and the wonderful thoroughbred horse farms that are dotted across the state. Um, it's a very cherished culture. The
Mhm.
food is dynamic as far as our chef and our culinary scene. So I'm just very proud of what we have to offer. And of course, the pinnacle every year, if you've never been to the Derby, the Kentucky Derby, it's a bucket list. It is absolutely a bucket list experience.
The well, this is a question that we'll ask later about hot browns, but the best that I've ever had was at Churchill Downs. It was so good. Like I still dream about that thing.
The Brown Hotel here in Louisville was the one that created the Brown,
Hmm.
the hot brown.
Yeah, that one just floored me. I don't know what it was, but by
Yeah.
goodness, it was amazing.
Mhm.
Um, it- uh, so let's talk about being a master bourbon taster. What exactly is a master bourbon taster?
Well, it can mean a lot of things because we're not like the wine culture where you have your sommeliers that you're testing and, have to understand all the geography of the world and all of those. it's not that formal. It's a very hands-on experience and training. And so I'll say that as well, to be a master distiller, a master blender, a master taster, call it what you will, but it's really when the distillery and the master distiller decides that you're ready to train, that you have a good palate. And at that time, I was working at the Woodford Reserve Distillery, and Lincoln Henderson, who's an icon in the industry, or was, he's unfortunately passed away, but he was the master distiller at the time at Woodford, and he thought I had a great palate, and I was a foodie, which I'm sure you can relate to,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
he was a foodie. So when I would taste my bourbon, I wouldn't just say, "Oh, I taste caramel." I'd say, "Wow, this is really kind of creme brulee like." And he would kind of look at me because I would use this vocabulary, this food vocabulary. And so then the general manager at the time said, "Peggy, we really think that you have a lot of aptitude and we'd love for you to formally train." So what that meant is that I followed the master distiller around, and he trained me, from going into the lab to going into the distillery and drilling barrels and pulling samples and,
Mm.
all of those things. So what I was able to do with that is barrel tastings, and that's what I'm saying, pulling samples from the barrel, quality control. I would travel on behalf of the company as an ambassador and do training for tastings and audiences. And so it let me do a myriad of things.
Mm.
And that was really fascinating, because that one training I didn't realize would carry me all the way through my career. And it
Wow,
has.
that's
It has
amazing.
literally carried me all the way through my career.
I realized because producer Brian just messaged me and said you are hogging up all the time. So I would like to to let you guys give you guys opportunity as well to please ask any questions, because I realized I am asking them all.
Well, sure. Just let me know what they chat in.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean that my question was going to be, how do you get to be like where do you sign up for that? How does someone who is not affiliated with a
Right.
distillery go? How
Right.
do I train my palate that way? Because when you said, I've been I've been drinking bourbon longer than I probably should have, but I didn't realize what I was doing. Like I've been
hmm
since I was in my probably 23, I started drinking bourbon, and my wife told me, like, it's like you're an old man, basically. Because who at that time, this was 17 years ago, bourbon wasn't as in as it is now.
That's right.
And
That's
she's like,
right. And
I was drinking scotch and bourbon as a
uh-huh.
mid 20-year-old. And she's like, it's an
Right.
old man thing, right?
Well,
For the most part.
that's really one of the catalysts of why I wrote my book, which fortune I use with my bourbon, because, I felt like I needed to culminate 30 years of my experiences in the industry. And so in the book, it really just tells you don't have to be an expert, to enjoy it and to learn some of the techniques that we know, and tricks of the trade, I call it, so that you can enjoy it in your own home.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that is really important, and that's why I'll just kind of hold my glass while I talk about it, is, the way we judge a whiskey. I'm a whiskey
I gotta look.
reviewer for American Whiskey Magazine. So I rate about 25 whiskeys a quarter in blind
Oh, wow.
tastings. And so these are just some of the things, instead of really, again, like wine folks that stick their nose down in there, your olfactory senses get overwhelmed because of the alcohol fume. So you actually have a better chance of identifying when you take it to the side, and then keep your mouth a little bit open, because that air will circulate in your olfactory and through it, almost circulates, and you can have a better sensory by nosing it. So that was
Huh.
one thing I learned. Another trick is I actually put my finger in the glass sometimes and put a couple drops in my hand and rub my hands together really
I've seen
sharp.
that. Okay.
And then you get all the bready notes, the grain notes.
Yeah. A lot of times I find
It's very
myself
fresh.
at the end, after I finish a glass, is sniffing the glass like
Yes.
afterwards. And
And
like,
you know what? That's smart.
yeah.
Because the longer that it stays in the glass empty, like that you can nose it and you still smell it, That's a quality bourbon.
Yeah, I think I had. I think it was last weekend. I had a little bit of Blanton's in a glass, and I've been to Buffalo Trace, and I'd done the tour, and I'm smelling, and in my head, I'm going. I remember walking through this place, and I feel like I was
Yeah.
smelling the
Mm.
Rick House when I was
Yeah.
smelling the glass, almost.
Exactly. And then another technique we use is when you taste it, and again, this is when you're trying to really identify the flavors and the character of the whiskey. So I wouldn't do this with a Manhattan. I would take a sip and then I'd swallow it and then do this, blow out. It blows out the alcohol and it's surround sound flavor in your mouth. Give it a try. See what
Yeah.
you think.
And we are tasting. All of us have a Woodford Reserve Double Oak in honor of you, ma'am, because you worked there.
Thank
So
you.
we are going to partake in that. And
All I could find was a fun size bottle. Was there bigger bottles of this stuff out there? 'Cause
oh yeah, look, I've got the big dude.
all I had was this little guy. It's like a single serving or something. I've
You have
never
the
actually
purse
tried this
pack.
one.
You have the purse pack size.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I call
Oh,
it.
that would be appropriate.
But
I've
try
never had
that.
this
It's
one
really,
before, actually.
yeah, it's really interesting when you take a little sip of it and then blow out. It really allows, your senses to come alive. And then I think of categories like fruit, spice, sweet, earth.
Yeah.
If I were to say a sweet to this,
Mhm.
hands down vanilla, right?
Mhm.
Because it's a double oak and caramel, really deep caramel notes. So when you start to think in categories of flavors, it helps you identify and focus on it because so many people get overwhelmed. They're like, oh my gosh, I could never talk like you do or articulate what I'm tasting. And it's only because we forget that we like to eat. So it's all food memory. It's all
Right.
food. We all know what
Yeah.
bananas taste like and
Yeah,
cinnamon tastes like, and right.
the
Yeah.
nose on this to me is banana bread a little bit. Like
Absolute.
that's
That is an absolute traditional nose
like even
of
like
that
a walnut
product.
banana
Yeah.
bread almost in there. That's
Absolutely. I definitely
Can-
get pecan, but I'll tell you, it has a lot of chocolate in it too. I get a little chocolate, and I
oh
get I
wow.
get almost roasted nuts, like smoky
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, this is my first. I've only had Woodford, I think, one time actually.
Oh,
And it might have been
really?
that reserve. You sent me something big and was it?
I got the distiller's cut
Yeah.
for this year.
That may be the only time Woodford
The
I
master's distiller
actually
cut.
drank, which is so this is,
Yeah.
and I've had a lot of bourbon. But for some
Yeah.
reason, I just had never picked up a bottle of Woodford Reserve.
Yeah, and it
And
also has a nice spice kick to it. That's a traditional Woodford too. It has a high rye in the mash bill, and
Hmm.
so I definitely get some peppery notes and some baking spice.
I was so disappointed because earlier this week I burnt my tongue. And I was
Oh
so
boy.
sad. I was like, I'm not going to be able to participate. So I've been trying to man up and just guzzle as much bourbon as I can to try to heal this thing, do whatever I can so I could do this. But yeah, I definitely also get like the vanilla and the banana bread. But it's always so funny to me is when somebody mentions something, then I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it tastes like.
The
Or
power
that's what
of
I'm smelling.
suggestion.
It
Yeah.
so much is. Even just I recently read the book Pappyland,
Hmm.
and it just talks about even just the myth of bourbons in general, and it's like, oh, the power of suggestion on that as well. Like, I got to get this bottle because so and so did this to it. So it's interesting about the power of suggestion on that.
It is. And I do think that is true because sometimes I'll say, what do you get on a fruit note? And somebody says, gosh, I just don't know. I can't identify. And I'm like, could it be banana bread? And they'll say, oh my gosh, it's banana bread. Yes, that is exactly, but everybody is different too.
Hmm.
Everybody has a different palate. And that's the beauty of the business is you taste what you enjoy. And that's what should lead you. Now, the one thing I will say, when I'm doing a tasting, like for a big event or something like that, like in the good old days when we were, had a bar you could
Sure.
come up and walk to. Um, and I would have several different styles of bourbon. And people would walk up and they say, "Oh, you're the master, master taster. You decide what I should drink. What do you recommend?" I said, "Well, tell
Mm.
me first. Do you like spicy food? Do you like desserts? Do you like more smoky, smoked meats and salamis and things like that? What do you like? And then once they tell me that, they're really surprised that I even asked that question. And then once they say, "Gosh, I really like sweet," then I'm going to direct them to a style of bourbon that has a heavy caramel, vanilla, chocolate. If they
Mhm.
say, "Oh, I really like spice," then I'm going to go for a rye, high rye,
Mhm.
and something with baking spices like Woodford.
I like
I
all those things. What does that mean? Like I like spicy, I like
Then I'm
sweet,
going
I
to
like
mix them all
smoky.
together and blend them all together and stir it in a big vat.
All right. I need a blended whiskey. That's what you're saying. All
Yeah,
right.
you just need a blended whiskey. Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that has helped me a lot recently is I've been using the tasting wheel, and that
Good.
really has been able to be like, oh, okay, now at least I know, is it spicy or is it fruity? And at least
Yeah.
it gets me in the ballpark. And I've really enjoyed doing that with the bourbons.
Yeah. Was it the Woodford Reserve tasting wheel or a different one?
It was a different one I just pulled off the
Yeah.
interwebs.
Yeah.
I need to find
It,
that.
does Woodford have their own?
Well, they do, but I wrote when I was at Woodford, one of the books that I came out with. It was my first book actually, and it was called the Woodford Reserve Culinary Cocktail Tour.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and so the chef in residence at the time was David Larson, who is still, in fact, I talked to him last week, still a very, very dear friend of mine. And we came up with one of the first flavor wheels that
Hmm.
went inside the book because it had recipes and cocktails. And we wanted to teach people, about all the different flavors of Woodford. And of course, it's evolved now. The
Mhm.
flavor wheel that they've developed today has evolved. But that's why I was asking
Yeah.
Yeah,
if it
this
could
one
have been that one.
has it's 5 categories. So there's a
Yeah.
wood, a grain, a spice, a sweet, and then a fruit and floral, and they're all like divided into subcategories.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Well,
for
And that's
this,
and that's part of the book. That's part of
yeah.
my new book is that we break down all different kinds of flavors so that you can it's not a wheel, but it's all different flavors. So I call it the intensity scale.
Mm. I just got your book today. It came
Oh,
via
did you?
Amazon. So yes, ma'am, I
Good.
sure did. So I have not had a time to to actually go through it intently. But my wife came down and she looked at it and she said, "Turn to the chapter of Kentucky, the Derby parties." And so we we walked through that because we always throw a Derby party at our house as well. So she was very interested in that.
Absolutely.
So also too, I want to get to the point of you also helped develop the Kentucky Bourbon Trail.
Hmm.
That blows my mind. Like,
Because that makes me old. 'Cause
no, ma'am, no, ma'am, no, ma'am. I don't know if you can see the screen, but I also have my little Kentucky
oh
Bourbon
yeah,
Trail
great.
little
Great.
thing. I've gone through it once, and it's been known on the show that sometimes I get emotional, but I want you to know from the bottom of my heart is one of the best trips that I've ever taken in my life was I took 6 friends. We went to Kentucky. We stayed at the back end of Churchill Downs, which I do not recommend doing. And we went to we did the Kentucky Derby or the Kentucky Trail, the Bourbon Trail. And honestly, it was one of the best times of my life. And thank you so much for putting that together. I loved it. I love taking people to the distilleries. They noted like it should be my side hustle that I should be able to go, do that a few times a year to
Yeah.
go on that trail. It is the most remarkable thing. And thank you again from the bottom of my heart that you and others put that together because that is amazing. I was able to showcase the beautiful landscape just going through Versailles and going to Woodford. I mean, I couldn't hear more of, man, this place is so beautiful. Man, this is
Right.
amazing.
Right.
And just being able to be proud and show off the state. So thank you so much for that.
Well, believe me, a lot of people have helped craft it and
Sure.
build it. And so the story, really, if you want to know when it started, again, I was at Woodford Reserve. I was the director of guest services at the time. And Maker's Mark had a director of guest services. Her name was Donna Nally, Steve Nally's wife. He's a famous master distiller. And
Oh, wow.
Doris Calhoun from Jim Beam Distillery. And the three of us were all in the same boat. We had to build traffic and visitorship,
Mhm.
at each of our distilleries, but we would see each other at different, industry events and tourism conferences and things that we would do together. And we literally became fast friends. And so even though we were competitors, and this is how our industry is, the
Mhm.
camaraderie of it all, we enjoyed each other's company. We would talk about business and how to drive business, and we all decided we needed to cross market to each
Mhm.
other's facilities, so that we could benefit from attracting larger groups. And then we thought, well, why don't we take this to the Kentucky Distillers Association, and maybe connect all the other distilleries too, not just the three of us. And so they thought that it was a good idea, and the first brochure was created. And now we have what, over 1 million visitors. I mean, it's mind boggling to
Yeah.
me that the trail was born from three women just trying to do their job. so I'm very proud of it. And then
Yeah.
when I started my own company, uh, 13 years ago, the Kentucky Distillers Association came back to me and said, "Hey, now that you have your own company and the trail is, thriving, and we need you to come back and write another 5-year strategy of the direction. Like, how can we grow this? How can it be?" So I had the privilege to be involved in that second phase of growth, and that brought so many things that are new now to the Bourbon Trail. So I really it was really rewarding to see the growth of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, and just know that it does impact people's lives. We even when we get together, still we'll remember that time when, and honestly, those facilities and those tasting rooms and
Hmm.
just being able to visit, they're gorgeous. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. The new Woodford Reserve area, that's gorgeous. So we were
Hmm.
able to visit there, I think the second week that it opened. So we had such a good time, and man, it's phenomenal. So anybody that's interested, I would highly encourage you. One, buy the book, Which Fork Do I Use with My Bourbon? And then two, go on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, because it will blow your mind.
Well, I really love the fact, and I hope, and I encourage people. I think there's like 63 or plus distilleries that you can actually visit now,
Yeah,
which is mind
so
blowing
many.
to me.
Wow.
And I've been very fortunate. Now, not all these were in Kentucky, but I have worked on 31 distilleries.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
Goodness.
hope, I don't know when that'll end, that I'll quit working on them, but it's fun to watch them grow
Sure.
now
Oh,
for
yeah.
me, to see, oh my gosh, we launched like Lux Row is in Bardstown. And,
Mhm.
that was maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I think. And they're exploding in growth. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
so
love Lux.
exciting to
I
see.
love their stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do too.
They've got good
They're
stuff.
great people. Great people.
You also created the Bourbon Women's Association. Can you tell
Yes.
us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Bourbon Women Association. I think honestly, I had that in my head when I worked in, the corporation of Brown Forman, because traditionally speaking, the marketing dollars were always spent, to the target market of, white male between the age of X and Z, and
Mhm.
there was never any marketing done to women. And so I thought always to myself, my gosh, I'm such a loyal bourbon fan, and I have so many friends growing up in Kentucky who are just diehard bourbon drinkers, female bourbon drinkers,
Mhm.
but we're not talking to them. We're
Mhm.
not marketing to them, and they're the other half of the population. So, not much I could do with my time there. But once I started my own company, that was a different story. And so
Yeah.
I think I was in year two, maybe, of my company, when I said, it's time. It's time. So I gathered, a group of women, and I said, "Hey, I've got an idea. I think really we need to bring women together. We need to have a voice in the industry.
Mhm.
We need to really build the bourbon franchise for women and what that looks like. And we need to help the industry understand to allocate marketing dollars, to start that conversation and bring women into the franchise, because we're missing a huge opportunity." So we did focus groups across Kentucky just to see if women would gravitate to it, and it was a resounding yes, a
Wow.
resounding yes. So we thought, let's roll. So our first event was 2011, and we were at the governor's mansion, and the first lady got up to speak, and the president of the Kentucky Distillers Association got up to speak, and it was really one of the best nights in my career.
Wow.
75 women showed up,
Wow.
which I was surprised. I mean, 75 women signed up. They couldn't wait to come. And I should mention, because this was really pinnacle to me, because I still use this conversation word, is that before I really launched it, I went and sat with Bill Samuels, who who's kind of mentored me in a sense, and I've always had such a great relationship with the Samuels. And I sat with Bill and I showed him our strategy and said, Bill, what do you think about this? Am I crazy? I mean, do you think, that women will like this? Or do you think, the bourbon industry, how will it be received? And he said, Peggy, this is smart. He goes, we need to have, and he used the best word, a conversation, not market to them, but let's have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And so that's the words I use a lot of times is, we have to have a conversation with women. So this year is our 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
So we have been in
Congratulations.
business for Bourbon Women, and Bourbon Women is my passion. It was never
Okay.
my core business, because my core business is building distilleries and tastings and things. But 10 years later, I've got a passionate board. We have thousands of women that we reach in our communications, members across the U.S. We have over 10 formal branches in different cities.
Okay.
And it's mind-blowing how the women have loved this. And what we're big on is we're a 501c6 because we wanted to help lobby, for the industry. But we put our stake in the ground on education, always learning something, having fun while we're doing it, but always learning something. And I think that's been very important. And so just to let the people listening know, tune in on February 25th and 26th. We're having our Toast to the 10th. It's our launch kickoff for our 10-year anniversary. And Fred Minnick, my dear friend Fred Minnick, is going to stream it live. So go to bourbonwomen.org to find out more about it. And you can sign up through Eventbrite.
Perfect.
Oh, so how do I get my wife to like bourbon? That's my question.
Cocktails.
Okay.
The women who have always shied away because maybe they remember it like as their father's drink, and they didn't like it, or that, it was too harsh. Like a highball is the best ginger ale and bourbon. It's the best starter, in my opinion. And then they graduate, and then they'll have an old fashioned, and then they graduate and say, well, I'll try Manhattan.
Sure.
Then they graduate and say, I'll have it over the rocks.
Yeah.
So it's this evolution, that women who did not drink bourbon, really get into.
Yeah. So I've tried a little bit of that. And then, every now and then I'll go, what does this smell like? And I'll let her, nose a glass.
Yeah.
She goes, alcohol.
See, do the side trick. The side trick.
Like,
See what
I smell
happens.
banana or chocolate or whatever it is. So like, what do you, do you smell the difference here? No.
It is
Do that side
amazing.
trick.
Yeah, do the side trick. It is amazing just the difference of approachability for women and men with bourbon, in the fact of my wife loves bourbon. She'll go out, and there's been numerous times where I'll order one, no questions asked, and she'll say, hey, I want an old fashioned. And the number of times that the waiter or waitress goes, you realize there's bourbon in that, right? It blows my mind. Like,
Well, my husband is he loves red wine, but he also loves bourbon. And many nights we'll go to dinner and he'll order a glass of red wine, and I'll order a Manhattan. So then they'll bring it and they'll put the Manhattan in front of him and the wine in front of me.
Oh,
that's classic.
And we had a friend, she passed away recently, but she started Southern Grace Distilleries. Leanne Powell. It's Whiskey Prison. It's a distillery in a former prison, and she was an amazing woman. But just breaking into the bourbon industry as a woman. For her, it seemed a little bit easy just because she's just got this outgoing personality or had this outgoing personality, but that seemed to be very difficult. Like trying to get into the bourbon industry or being in the bourbon industry as a woman. Did you face any struggles like that?
Absolutely. No
Yeah.
doubt about it. And, again, I think we have advanced some. We have room to grow for sure, but you are seeing more. I mean, think about this. It was the 1990s. I mean, late 1990, I guess early 2000, maybe. I've lost track when I became a master taster. And I
Mhm.
was the first female master taster in the world. That's
Wow.
not that long ago,
No.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, 200 years of bourbon history. And that was the first female master taster. So, as proud as I am of that title, it strikes me now
Mm.
that at the time I didn't realize what a big deal that was going to be. But now we have master distillers, female master distillers, female master blenders, women rising in the ranks as in marketing and executive level. So things have evolved, they're changing. Brand management, there's a ton of women in brand management, which I'm so proud of.
Yeah.
But no, it was absolutely, I will never say it was easy. And
Mm.
I just won't paint the picture of roses, because
Sure.
I worked very, very hard, and kind of had to do double time sometimes just to prove myself. And but what I always knew is that I thought differently. And because I
Mm.
thought differently, I think it helped me create and innovate many things in our industry that traditionally, was thought of just, status quo.
Yeah.
So if maybe I'm a bit of a disruptor, I guess,
Love it.
but I think that that's necessary sometimes
Absolutely.
to stand out.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about the book? Which fork do I use with my bourbon? Just give our listeners just a plug of the book. We would appreciate it.
Sure. Well, my good friend and I wrote the book together, Susan Riegler. She's also a whiskey critic with me in American Whiskey Magazine. And, we're kind of the Thelma and Louise of bourbon, I guess is what we call ourselves. But we really wholeheartedly and sincerely wanted to teach everything we knew about bourbon hospitality and
Mm.
entertaining. And so we start truly with the basics of how to plan an event in your home, using bourbon.
Mhm.
And then we move to how to do a basic bourbon tasting, and we teach all the different styles. Then we go to basic food pairings. Then we go to advanced food pairings. Then we go to things like Kentucky Derby and how the other distilleries entertain. It's an incredibly visual book, because we want it to not only tell you how to do it, but show you how to do it. So many of the photos that you see, I shouldn't say many, I would say 90% of the photos that you see were done in my home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. We styled all of them in the house, and the recipes and things like that have been handed down. Some through my family heritage, some through Susan's family heritage, some through just good old Kentucky recipes that we wanted to share, because we thought they were that good. We
Mhm.
have cocktail recipes galore, and a lot of help from our friend, the Cocktail Contessa, who is now the president of Bourbon Women.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and so it's really, again, this culmination of just our life of learning in
Mm.
the industry, but doing it in your home.
Nice.
Letting you know that you don't have to be an expert to appreciate bourbon and have fun with it.
Awesome. I can't wait to look. I was again
Let me
scrolling
know
through.
what you think. Let me know what you
Absolutely.
think.
I
Yeah.
saw the country ham and biscuits, and I
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
get past that one.
I know.
Golly.
Country.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on.
I know. They're so.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what food would you pair with this Woodford Double Oak?
I would probably, I mean, you mentioned country ham, and here's where I would go with it. Country ham has a smoky note, right?
Mhm.
And do you get a little bit of smoke out of this? I mean, I do with the double oak. It has that smoky, salty, and so it has a savory note. And
Mhm.
so that smoke from this would go beautiful with it. Now, what I would do, and I know this might sound a little bit crazy, but with all that nice sweet caramel note, um, I would probably put a little bit of a layer of orange marmalade on the country ham biscuit.
Oh, come
And
on.
yeah, I really would do that because I think that this has a lot of like stone fruits, not necessarily citrus, but kind of stone fruits, kind of jammy almost.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that it would be beautiful with that, and especially with that wrap of vanilla,
Mhm.
because think of savory and sweet.
Yep.
Sometimes
Yeah.
savory and sweet. That's why people put like M&Ms in their popcorn.
Yeah. That sounds
Because they want buttery and they want sweet and they want savory. So it's kind of like that buttery biscuit, orange marmalade, country salty ham.
There's definitely a dark note to this.
There is,
It's
isn't there?
not. I want to call it apple. It's not apple butter, but it has like the mouth feel.
Oh,
Makes you think of
even
the back,
better.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I could totally see apple butter on that biscuit with it.
Yeah.
I could totally see
Like
that. I
it's
could
not
totally see where
apple,
you're going.
But there's another something like a darker, not quite as bright as an apple.
That's why I said kind of stone fruits in
Yeah.
that. But orange marmalade to me, it just, I don't know, it's so easygoing that it
Mhm.
wouldn't overpower anything or take away anything.
Yeah.
It would only allow that sweetness overlay of caramel to get sweeter. And because orange marmalade's pretty sweet, it's not sour, it's not citrusy,
Mhm.
really.
Yeah. It
It's
has
sweet.
that peel, that zest
Yeah.
note.
Yeah, a little bit of that
touch
zest.
of bitterness there.
Yeah, and so think of the rye flavor, the peppery note in
Yeah,
this with that
absolutely.
bitter flavor.
I gotta do that. I'm gonna do it this weekend. I'm gonna go to the Bojangles and get a jar. I'm gonna get a country ham biscuit and a jar of marmalade and go to town.
I'm telling you, you will never regret it.
Wow.
I like the idea of the apple butter though. I like that one. I could see that as well.
Absolutely, I can too. I can totally see that. Now, another one that I would put with this is dark chocolate. Something that was like a decadent dark chocolate cake. I could totally see with this.
Is there a bottle of bourbon that you haven't had that you would love to have?
That I have not had.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've had so many.
So for us, like
I'm just like that I have not had. Oh my goodness.
For us, like getting Pappy, you'll never like. I feel like we'll never see that unicorn. So like a Pappy 23, I would just die if I had some.
Yeah.
So
I mean, a 10. You can tell what you're talking about. Right?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm having a hard time finding a bottle, frankly, that I really, really think is delicious. It's Colonel Taylor.
the E.H. Taylor.
Yes.
Mm.
The E.H. Taylor, I think, is absolutely fabulous, and I'm just really struggling with finding it.
Right.
Yeah. So
and so I wouldn't mind having a bottle of that.
Yeah.
If anybody from
me.
Sazerac's listening, and I'll tell you what and see, these are things that I've tasted at one time, and now I want one and I can't get one. There was a rye that was done by New Riff, and it was called Balboa rye. It was probably one of the best tasting ryes that I've ever had, and
wow.
It blew my socks off. And of course, I rated it over. I was a blind tasting where I first tasted it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's blind taste!" I was dying to know what it was, and it was New Riff, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're right out of Northern Kentucky."
Mhm.
And so I rushed to call, and I was like, "Gosh, can I buy a bottle of this?" They were out. I mean, 100% out, and they haven't had it. But I like stumbling on those kind of products.
Yeah, you brought up blind tasting there. I don't know how much time you have, but can you talk about the different, like when you taste something by itself and then you taste it next to something like different in a blind taste, like the difference of what happens there?
Yeah. Normally, when I'm tasting, I'll do like 5 at a time. I'll do them kind of in small lots, over a period of days. And so what's nice is what they do tell you is the category. Is it a bourbon, a rye, a malt whiskey? Because we rate those too. And so that's some of that comparison in a sense, because it keeps your taste buds dancing when it's different categories. They'll tell you the proof and where it's from, and that's it. So sometimes I have to taste one and then I'll write about it, and I might flag it. I'll put a Post-it note on it and make myself come back to it, especially if it's the first one I taste.
Mhm.
If it's the very first one I taste of the day, sometimes you've got to almost calculate and get your almost like calisthenics for your tongue. It's
Sure.
like you kind of have to get, because you've eaten or you've brushed your
Yeah.
teeth or, so I don't want it to throw off my sense. So
Yeah.
then sometimes I'll
Mhm.
come back to it after I've compared it.
Yeah, I find that I have to have a second pour of something to really know what I'm drinking. Like
I
to really get
understand
a
that.
taste for it. Like the first one's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I kind of got an idea, but I need
Right.
another ounce or two to really.
That's right. And until you taste something else, then you go, oh my gosh, that first one was so much better.
Right.
I also pour them before I taste them at least 15 minutes prior.
Mhm.
At least I let it
The
sit.
more you
I let it open. If I pour and taste, I'm not doing it justice because it really needs to sit a little bit.
Right. There's so much that happens there just in a little bit with
So
the
much.
air. Yeah.
Yeah.
So much.
I don't like tasting anything. A lot of times I'll buy a bottle and just open the seal, just pop it, and then put the cork back on, and then wait a week
Yep.
and then drink it.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. It blows my mind just how it changes from the neck pour all the way down to the bottom. Like it's never the same bottle.
Yeah. See, when I'm doing my blind tasting, they're all in like little jars, so I don't even know what the package is. But when I just buy a bottle of bourbon or I have something on my shelf, I have this habit of uncorking it or unscrewing the cap, and I'll nose it in the bottle. I have
Hmm.
this habit of doing that, and I want to get my very first impression.
Mm.
Now, again, I pour it and let it sit if I really want to conduct a deep tasting, but I just want to know what hits me predominantly. If it's a pop of caramel, if it's a pop of spice, if it's, smoky or whatever. And
Yep.
and then I see if it rings true in the glass
Yeah,
when I
that's what
drink
happened
it.
to me tonight. I opened that Woodford for the first time. I just popped it to get the seal off before because I poured it the first time when we started talking.
Yeah.
And I just kind of sniffed the bottle, and that banana and the nut was there the first scent I
Right.
got off of that.
There you go.
Interesting.
We have somebody who's on the chat, and they're asking, which E.H. Taylor are you hunting?
I don't care. Any of them.
Wow.
Really and truly.
Yeah.
I'll take any of them. I just have not had any luck. But it happens in our
Yeah,
industry,
that
right?
depresses me because I love like E.H. Taylor, and you're more connected than I am, definitely. So I don't have a chance, right?
Well, I could call Harlan Wheatley up, I guess, and ask him
Yeah.
for a
Oh,
favor,
yeah.
but I try not to do that. I try not to do that.
I saw where, excuse me, Buffalo Trace released their Angel's Envy or their double Eagle Rare this week, and
Oh, did they?
boy, that's on my bucket list as well. I
I
just want
bet.
the bottle,
Yeah.
The one that has
Yeah.
the wings
the
on it,
eagle
right?
on the outer, yeah, and the one inside of it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Again, I appreciate your time. I don't want to take too much more of it. You've been so
That's
gracious to us. We do play a game every once in a while called 10 and 1, where I ask
Oh.
you 10 questions and see if you can get in under a minute. So,
Okay. Oh
there's no
gosh, I gotta
pressure.
like be alert. Okay.
Well, not really. And,
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing like
you can
tasting
take-
bourbon than getting a pop quiz.
Yeah.
you
Hey,
can
I
take
might
10
do
minutes.
better. Actually, I might do better after having a glass.
All right. Well, here we go. The
Okay.
best hot brown in Kentucky.
Brown Hotel,
Where would you travel to if you could tomorrow?
Hawaii.
What's more likely to be true, Bigfoot or aliens?
Aliens.
Your favorite distillery tour?
Oh gosh. Oh, that was a stumper. Oh my God. Cuervo, honestly.
Wow. Okay. I'm the answer to this is no, but the question was, is Kentucky basketball making the tournament?
No.
No. If you could,
No.
if you could have dinner with someone past or present, who would it be?
Maya Angelou.
Hmm. The food that you're looking forward to the most during a Kentucky Derby party.
Fried chicken,
What was your favorite subject in school?
science,
The best bottle under $30.
Elijah Craig.
And everybody knows their spirit animal, but what is your spirit food?
Oh, is it bad if I say fried chicken again?
No, absolutely not.
Nope, it's loud.
That's perfect.
I am a
think she
sucker
made it.
for it. Oh,
Really?
did I really?
I think you did. Yes, ma'am.
What did
That's
I
very close.
win? Did I win a bottle of E.H. Taylor?
I'll have some
So-
Elijah Craig you can have.
Oh, okay.
It's got one pour out of it.
So the deal is, I heard of a story of a man who he would collect scotch for his son when he was getting for his birthday. So every year he got a bottle of scotch,
Mhm.
and he did it for 21 years. And after that 21 years, he gave the entire collection to his son. His son sold the lot and like put the money down on a house. I think he made like $21,000 in fact. So what I'm doing is I'm doing that with E.H. Taylor. So I'm going to try to do that. We nickname our
It's a single
foster
barrel,
daughter.
right?
I'm sorry.
It was the single barrel, right? Or was it small
Well,
batches? Which
I'm
one?
doing small batch.
Okay.
The name of our foster daughter is Small Batch, just a nickname. And so I'm trying to collect one for every year for her birthday. So
I love that.
I would part one of my bottles to you, but it is going to hurt.
That's sacred. No,
Yes.
and let me tell you, I relate so much to that because
Mm,
both my boys, when my first one turned 21, I had this idea that I was going to get all the different bottles from my favorite master distillers who I know personally and
mm,
have them sign on the bottle a special message to him. And they did. I mean, like
Very
Jimmy
cool.
Russell and Bill
Oh,
Sandwich.
wow.
I mean, I just loved it. And I put all of them in this collection box and bought his first silver mint julep cup
Oh,
for his
wow.
21st birthday. So remember that one,
Yes, ma'am.
buying the julep cup.
Very cool. It's going to be an amazing down payment on a house or silver mint julep cup, or we're going to have one heck of a party. So
There you go.
Right.
I love it. Great idea.
thank you. Producer Brian, did you have any other questions? Or Ryan, did you have any questions?
No, thank you for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
none for
been a
me.
ton of fun. Thanks for having me. And I really enjoyed it.
Well, we will, at some point, I'm going to take the boys up and we're going to go on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail.
Great.
Maybe we can connect sometime.
I'd hope so. I'd
Perfect.
hope so.
Peggy, before we let you go, can you give us a shout out and just say, this is Peggy No Stevens, and you're listening to the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast?
This is Peggy No Stevens, and you are listening to the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. All
Have a
right.
great
Take
night,
care.
and we'll talk soon.
Cheers.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye-bye.
Wow. So,
Wow.
Magic Man, did you learn anything?
I was just getting ready to say I am not a bourbon drinker. I'm more of a beer guy, but I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was
That is
fun.
an awesome pour, though. Like, I've never had this.
I
don't know
enjoyed it.
why I've never had this.
Yeah, I
Ah,
My little
that
background,
was
you
a
can't see it.
great. That's a great bottle. That's a great bottle of bourbon right there.
It's a good bottle. Now,
smells great.
I didn't want to say this, but we have, this is an ABC pick. So
Mm,
this one's called Double Play. So
it's a little different.
yeah, it's a little bit
Yeah.
different. But here's the deal. And if you
Just the
guys aren't familiar,
standard.
yeah. If you're not familiar with what double oaked is, you're like, what does that even mean? They do the regular Woodford Reserve bourbon, and the rule for bourbon is you can only use the barrel one time, and then once that's done, once it's aged in that barrel, it's done. Like that barrel is done, you pour it out, you can't use it again. Now you can use that barrel to make whiskey, you can use it to make beer, whatever, but for it to be bourbon, one time use, that's it. Well, what double oaked means is they get that bottle, they get the bourbon out of that one barrel, and then they put it in a brand new barrel. And so it gets darker, you get way more flavor, it's way more intense, and it's using another barrel to age the process. So that's why it's
You know-
going to be a lot darker. Go ahead.
Do you know the ages on this? Like how long it spends in each barrel? Has that been published?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I was just very curious because that's I don't know where I've been the last couple of years on this.
Well, it's not, and it's relatively new.
Is
Like
it?
the
Okay.
double oak is
I've
fairly
mentioned,
new.
I think was Chris from Red Hill was talking about it at one point. He said
Mhm.
it was really good. I remember him talking about it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I walk by, and there's certain things, it's just like, this is the brand you can get anywhere, right?
Right.
This is one you walk into any bar in any place in the world. They've got this, and they probably got Knob Creek,
Right.
like
Jack
all the
Daniel,
time,
but
right?
yeah.
Jack, for bourbon though, but
Right.
so it's Woodford, just like I just kind of gloss by it while I'm on the shelf all the
Mhm.
time. This is a great example of a very available, even though I had to get the fun size one, not the big one, but it's very available, very good bottle.
Yeah. Well, and how about our guest? How
Right,
amazing was that?
That was awesome.
Like, I
That was
don't want to
great.
pass over that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm not trying
She-
to. I'm going to
no,
finish
no.
this bottle tonight. That's
You
all.
can, you can enjoy the bottle. I enjoyed the guest so much. I
Yeah,
mean,
that was great.
I can't. I know we call it Southern Fried Philosophy, but I cannot reiterate how amazing Kentucky is. I mean, she was saying like you can smell the mash bill. Well, if you're around Buffalo Trace, if you're in Frankfurt at all, you just step outside and you can smell that. Like
Yeah.
when she said that people are like consumed or like always have bourbon around it because it's in the air,
Yeah.
it dissipates, it evaporates out of those barrels and it's all over. Like it
Yeah.
smells different in
It's
Kentucky.
a beautiful place. I can say that. I've driven,
Yeah.
I've driven to Kentucky once, maybe 3 times in my life. Not many times. I'd like to go more, go
Right.
hunting. But, just driving, like, you cross Tennessee going into Kentucky, and it's just like rolling hills and grass. And when you get up into, Louisville and Lexington, all those places, it's just like in the horse country.
Ugh.
It's just gorgeous. It's
Yeah.
absolutely gorgeous.
Magic Man, have you been to Kentucky?
Yeah, actually, I was just getting ready to say, with my prior company I worked for, I'd actually have been to Kentucky many times on business trips, both to Lexington. I actually did an install for University of Kentucky. Some of
Go
the
Cats.
Far-
Oh, I
yep.
forgot to tell her go
for,
Cats.
for some of the pharmacies and the hospitals there, and then also I've been to Eastern Kentucky in coal country,
Mhm.
to Hazard, to McDowell,
Yep.
and so I've been to Pikeville, Hinman, little towns nobody would ever hear about, and there is a Hazard, Kentucky,
Yeah, there
and
is.
and like
It's
we
not
were
the
saying,
Dukes of Hazzard one.
it's not the
It's
Dukes of
Georgia.
Hazzard. It's yeah, but these folks were, everybody was so friendly, and they were great business trips, and I still actually keep in touch with a couple of the folks to this day, and it'll be 6 years in March since I worked for that prior company, and it's been
Wow.
7-8 years since I've been to Kentucky. So
Wow.
yeah,
So at one point, gentlemen, once everything's cleared, COVID's done, well, we will go on the trail. It'll be a good time. Also, again, pick up the book, Which Fork Will I Use With My Bourbon, or Do I Use With My Bourbon? Just flipping through it. If you love bourbon, you love hosting parties, you love food, you love cocktails, man, there's so much information in this book. It's beautiful,
There's
hardbound.
pictures, right? I heard there's pictures.
Oh, dude, there's a ton of pictures.
Okay, sweet.
So it's, there's no pop-ups. So sorry.
All right, I'm
Magic Man.
okay with pictures. I like picture books.
The pictures, it's a great little book. So not little book. I mean, it's a hefty thing. So we'll put the link out on our show notes. Man, that was amazing.
That's great.
All right. So next week we have Karen Tibbles, Persuade, Don't Preach, Restoring Civility Across the Political Divide. Again, don't forget to check out one of our sponsors, Free Lunch Coffee at freelunchcoffee.com. Use promo code Southern Fried and you get 10% off your order. Again, thank you guys for tuning in to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. Remember to share, like, subscribe, YouTube, all of the things. Vermont, New Hampshire, we're gunning for you this week. I'm going to make a TikTok video. So follow us on TikTok, SFP Radio. Guys, thank you again for tuning in. And as always, keep looking up. You're listening to the SFP